On the morning of August 19, 1943, 27,000 feet above the German industrial city of Schweinfurt, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler eased back on the stick of his Messerschmitt Bf 109 and felt the airframe tremble. At this altitude, the thin air made every control input sluggish, every maneuver an act of anticipation rather than reaction. Below him, a formation of American B-17 flying fortresses droned eastward, their contrails slicing white lines against the dark earth. Stigler had flown 174 combat missions. He knew the mathematics of air combat as intimately as a pianist knows scales. Altitude equals energy, energy equals options, and the pilot who controls the vertical dimension controls the fight. That was doctrine. That was physics. That was survival. Then he saw them, 4 aircraft climbing toward his position from below. Their twin-boom silhouettes were unmistakably American. His intelligence briefings had mentioned such machines with dismissive shrugs, twin-engine fighters, perhaps reconnaissance platforms or light bombers. Nothing a well-flown Bf 109 needed to fear. Stigler checked his altitude advantage, 3,000 feet. Textbook positioning. He rolled into a shallow dive to build speed, preparing for a slashing attack that would scatter these lumbering machines. What happened next would shatter his understanding of what was possible in the air. The lead American aircraft, a Lockheed P-38 Lightning, did not break formation, did not dive away, did not attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, it climbed, not gradually, but almost vertically, at an angle so steep it seemed to defy gravity, over 3,000 feet per minute. In 40 seconds, Stigler's altitude advantage evaporated. In 60, the American was above him, rolling inverted, converting that impossible climb into a diving attack. The pilot's actions violated everything Stigler knew about air combat physics.
To understand the shock that moment caused, one must understand the world Stigler inhabited, a world where German technical superiority was not propaganda, but lived reality. On September 1, 1939, when German forces invaded Poland, the Luftwaffe fielded around 4,000 combat aircraft. The Messerschmitt Bf 109E, or EML, was the product of nearly a decade of focused development. Its Daimler-Benz DB601 engine produced 1,175 horsepower, giving it a top speed of 354 miles per hour and a climb rate of nearly 3,000 feet per minute. The type had been refined through real combat during the Spanish Civil War, producing a mature, reliable weapon supported by coherent tactical doctrine. The results were devastating. Poland fell in 5 weeks. France, with more tanks and men, collapsed in 6. Even against Britain's excellent Supermarine Spitfire, the Luftwaffe held its own. German pilots entered 1941 confident that their fighters were unmatched. The Bf 109 was the yardstick by which all others were measured, and the newer Gustav variants, introduced in 1942, only reinforced that superiority with more power and better armament. Against Soviet and American aircraft, the Germans felt unchallenged. The Curtiss P-40 Warhawk struggled above 15,000 feet. The Bell P-39 Airacobra, with its mid-engine design, killed more of its own pilots than enemies. To Germanize, American designs were crude and chaotic, products of industrial abundance rather than engineering discipline. But in 1937, a 33-year-old engineer named Clarence or Kelly Johnson at Lockheed approached the U.S. Army Air Corps' impossible new specification for a high-altitude interceptor differently. Instead of modifying existing fighters, he designed from first principles. His answer was radical: use 2 engines. The resulting aircraft, the P-38 Lightning, mounted its twin Allison V-1710 engines in long booms, leaving the central fuselage free for the pilot, fuel, and heavy nose-mounted armament. Each engine had a turbocharger, allowing full power even in the thin air above 25,000 feet, something no German fighter could match.
When the P-38 prototype flew in 1939, it was unlike anything else in the sky. It could exceed 400 miles per hour, climb at over 3,000 feet per minute, and operate at altitudes approaching 40,000 feet. Problems remained: compressibility issues in high-speed dives and maintenance complexity, but the concept was sound. By 1943, the improved P-38H arrived in England, equipped with dive flaps and extended range thanks to drop tanks. At last, the U.S. 8th Air Force had a fighter capable of escorting bombers all the way to Berlin and back. German intelligence misjudged the P-38. They knew it was twin-engine and assumed it was heavy, slow, and clumsy, a target, not a threat. Doctrine said a single-engine Bf-109 attacking from above would always hold the advantage. On August 17, 1933, during the Schweinfurt Regensburg raid, Stigler set out to prove it. He climbed to 27,000 feet, perfectly positioned above the bombers and their escorts. The P-38s below seemed unaware. He rolled into his dive, sun at his back, closing at 400 miles per hour. But the Americans did not scatter. The lead P-38, flown by First Lieutenant Virgil Smith of the 55th Fighter Group, advanced both throttles to full power. At 30,000 feet, his turbocharged Allison still breathed freely, producing over 3,000 combined horsepower. The aircraft surged upward, almost vertical. Stigler's advantage vanished. The P-38 climbed straight into his attack, its rate of climb undiminished by altitude. Stigler pulled up, trying to follow, but his supercharged engine wheezed in the thin air. The Bf-109's climb rate dropped to half that of the American.
In seconds, Smith was above him, inverted, diving back down with all the energy Stigler thought belonged to him. What followed was a 6-minute dance of power and energy. Every time Stigler tried to engage, the P-38 outclimbed him, outsped him, and reset the fight. It refused to turn fight. It didn't need to. The Lightning fought vertically, climbing and diving with impunity, in an altitude band where German fighters struggled to breathe. Finally, low on fuel and ammunition, Stigler dove away, conceding the engagement. At the debriefing that evening, he tried to explain, "We had the position, we attacked from above, and they climbed through us." His superiors were skeptical. Twin-engine fighters did not outclimb Bf-109s at altitude. That was known physics. Yet reports of similar encounters soon arrived from every front. German pilots wrote of American twin-boom fighters that seemed to ignore the limits of air and gravity, climbing when logic said they should fall. The P-38 Lightning had not only introduced a new aircraft to the skies over Europe, it had rewritten the rules of air combat itself.